Hello again, everyone. This is Rob, aka Hated Hero. I'm bringing you my Bloodlord build in this video. This is a no CP, battleground focused build, and it's a vampire themed build, meaning the core of the build is all about being a vampire and using vampire abilities to kill our enemies. That makes this build a lot of fun and stand out among other Magic Templar builds. We're not just tanking, we're not just doing damage, we're doing a little of both. It's not much of a support character because your resources need to be used for you and, primarily keeping yourself alive. However, you can sustain helping teammates out if they really need. But this is not a build you would want to go into Battlegrounds with to heal an entire team. You are in the midst of battle with this build and trying to do damage when you can. So we'll hop into the sets quickly. We're running Vampire Lord. This gives us max magic, spell damage, spell critical, and adds nearly 400 spell damage to all of your vampire abilities. It also reduces the cost of your vampire abilities by 5%. The monster set that I'm choosing to run with this build is Slime Crawls. I personally do not like proc sets. I did, however, test this build with Valken Scoria. It does obviously more damage, and you can burst your targets easier. I just choose to not run it. And I also tested it with Blood Spawn, which makes you even more tanky and has your ultimate up more often, which is nice because our Bat Swarm is one of the main ways we get kills with this build. So the longer uptime you have on Bat Swarm, the better. I just wanted my overall damage to be higher throughout the entire build, so I chose to go with Slime Crawl. The secondary set is Impregnable Armor. This gives us max health, max stamina, max magic, and 2500 crit resist. So none of our armor pieces have to be Impin. We can use other traits, which makes the build better overall. What I've chosen to go with is sturdy pieces. I would like to have all sturdy pieces, however, I don't have those pieces available. So if you had 7 body pieces in sturdy to do this build, I would definitely recommend it. I, however, am using 2 Impin because that's all I have. This is a 5-1-1 build, meaning 5 of the primary armor type, which is heavy, 1 light, 1 medium, and we're doing that to get our maximum bonus of Undaunted. Increase your max health, stamina, and magic by 2% per type of armor, heavy, medium, light, and the current bonus is 6% because we have all 3 types in this build. I personally go with all magic recovery. You could maybe do 1 cost reduction or a couple cost reduction or another spell damage if you'd like. This is something that's flexible for you. I have found that I personally need 3 recovery. Our back bar is going to be Vampire Lord as well, just with a defensive... Oh wow, my weapons are in the wrong slots right now. That would explain why I was doing less damage a little bit ago when I was playing around in Battlegrounds. Let me fix that real quick before I forget. Okay, so you want to go with a defending sword on your back bar. It doesn't have to be a sword, I just like the way swords look. When you do one hand and shield, it does not matter what weapon you have. Only the trait of the weapon matters. So this could be a defending axe, it could be a defending dagger. Does not matter. It's still going to give you the physical and spell resist. I just like the way swords look. Your front bar needs to be 2 sharpened swords for maximum damage. Alright, let's look at the stats. This is our defensive bar, so let's put down our defensive buffs. We'll quickly look at them before they run out. Spell resistance, nearly 32,000. Physical resistance, 26,000. Our magic recovery is 1,400. Our health and stam recovery, I don't worry too much about. We're a vampire, our health recovery is not going to be good. Our stamina recovery does not need to be high. We need to do heavy attacks when available to regenerate stamina. And also potions can be used. The main thing is learning to heavy attack when needed, and you get a massive amount of stamina back. That's how we maintain our resource pools. Max magic, 31k. Maximum health, 22k. And max stamina, 15k on our defensive bar. It's a little lower on the offensive bar because I have one stamina glyph on the shield instead of a magic. And our crit resist is 3k. So we have all these great stats on top of 3k crit resist on our defensive bar. As a matter of fact, we have the 3k crit resist on both bars. Spell damage on this bar is a little low, but again, this is a vampire themed build. I'm not hung up on the spell damage. I have not had any problem killing anybody in Battlegrounds with this build, from light armor targets to tanky targets. Now, here is our offensive bar stats. We're up to 1,700 spell damage, and all the other stats should remain the same except for our spell and physical resist. However, if you were still in your defensive rune, you still have 27,000 spell and 21,000 physical resist. So very high defensives thanks to the heavy armor and our defensive rune. For attributes, I go with 55 magic, 9 stamina. This helps us get to what I like to be at, which is right at 15,000 stamina on both bars. And it gets me over 30,000 magic, which is what I want in Battlegrounds for my main resource pool, be it stamina or magic. This isn't a big deal. This is more of an OCD thing, but it's just what I like to have. I am showing you these stats in a no champion point campaign. However, we do have an offensive scroll bonus and a defensive scroll bonus right now, so take that into consideration. Your defenses and spell damage will be a tiny bit lower out of Battlegrounds. I go with the Atronach boon for magic recovery. I'm always a stage 4 vampire. I'm too lazy to feed. This does not affect my gameplay. You can do whatever you'd like with this. If you'd like to stay at stage 3, that's entirely up to you. I just stay at stage 4. And then our race is Breton. That's why our spell resist is quite a bit higher than you may have been expecting. Alright, so that's the sets. That's our stats. Let's hop into the skills. So on our offensive bar, we are running Degeneration. This does a slight damage over time, so if you were running Valkynscoria, this would help proc Valkynscoria. It heals you for 1388 health, an additional 1388 health over 6 seconds. This scales, so if you were to go with another spell damage glyph or somehow get more max magic by reducing your stamina, etc., like this could be higher. It also gives us major sorcery, increasing our spell damage by 20% for 20 seconds. And then the light and heavy attack that gives you health back isn't a very big deal. I just don't like, this is another OCD thing, I do not like my health being different on my 2 bars. So if I had went with the other morph of entropy here, my max health would be higher on this bar, and I just don't like that. I like it to be the same when I bar swap. Our next skill is Radiant Glory. You can go with the other morph of Radiant here if you would like. I personally like this morph because it heals me as it's doing damage. So if I'm executing a guy and I too am at somewhat of a low health threshold, I don't have to cancel my execute to necessarily heal myself. I can ride it out a little bit longer than someone using the opposite morph of this and possibly kill the guy before I need to heal. So that's why I choose this morph. And when you're talking damage difference, it doesn't mean that much to me because the damage is already so high of this ability. Our next skill is Vampire's Bane. This is a damage over time, and it also reduces the enemy movement speed by 40%. And it also gives you spell critical rating. So you want to have this slotted if you can help it. And you want to use this every 12 seconds when you're doing damage. You don't necessarily have to use it when you're not on the offensive. It helps on both sides of things, though, because of the enemy movement speed reduction. Puncturing Sweeps. This is our primary DPS ability. I'm pretty sure everyone's familiar with this that's played a Templar. It does damage and heals you as it's doing damage. Our last skill is Invigorating Drain. This does a damage over time, restores health, and generates 5 ultimate every 1 second for 3 seconds. When you have the drain active, the enemy is stunned for 3 seconds. This stun is one of the very few that goes through block. This cannot be blocked. So you're perma-blocking DKs, you're perma-blocking Magic Templars. And if they don't have an immovable pot up, this is going to CC them. Which is absolutely awesome. Our ultimate for this bar is Devouring Swarm. It is also a damage over time, and it also heals you as you do damage. So all of these abilities are damage over time, and all of them but Vampire's Bane give us a little bit of healing. This gives us massive healing. When you have your Devouring Swarm active, you pretty much cannot die. Our back bar, Radiant Mage Light. You do not have to use this skill. This is a flex skill. You don't have to use some of these skills if you don't like to, but this skill here is definitely a flexible ability. You can put whatever you'd like here. I like it because it reduces damage from stealth attacks. Some people told me that it did not reduce damage anymore, but I tested with a Nightblade friend of mine with this skill on and with it off, and it reduced his incoming stealth damage by over 1,000 for the same ability that he was using on me. Purifying Light. This does slight damage when you first apply it, then it stores damage and releases it as a burst. It also leaves an effect on the enemy when it expires that heals you or any allies standing in it. So again, another slight heal. Honor of the Dead. You can go with Breath of Life here if you'd like, but as I said, this is not a team-focused healing build. So what Honor of the Dead does us is anytime someone is healed at 75% health or below, you get 60% of the ability cost returned to you over 8 seconds. That's a lot. And this is a low recovery build, high cost build. So any cost reduction we can get, which is basically what this boils down to, is good for us. That's why I choose Honor of the Dead. You can get in trouble at times if you and a teammate are taking a lot of damage, because it's going to heal whoever the lowest person is at the time of you casting it. But if you're spamming it anyway, as soon as your teammate catches the first heal, you're going to get the next one. So you might miss one heal. I don't feel like this has ever been the cause of me dying in Battlegrounds. Now, Open World Cyrodiil, if you're running with a larger group, possibly. But in Battlegrounds, this has never been the cause of my death. and it's only helped me, I feel, by the resource return that you get. Our next ability is Extended Ritual. This is another heal over time. It also cleanses harmful dots. If your armor gets broken from an end cap, which also debuffs you, this removes debuff. If you get hit with a reverberating bash, it removes that healing debuff. Any Templar, magic, or stamina should be using this ability. Our last skill on this bar is Channeled Focus. This one does not give us the decreased incoming damage or the minor mending, but it does give us magic over time. For me, I feel this is beneficial for this build. You do not have to use this morph. You can use the other morph if you'd like. I just like the resource management that it helps give you. The build is already so tanky, I really do not feel like I'm missing out from using this morph and not the reduced damage one. Even though the reduced damage one gives you increased healing, I don't see much of a difference other than the resource management this one gives you. Our last ability is Empowering Sweep. If you're not using this as your ultimate on this bar, then I would definitely suggest not using Mage Light and using Aurora Javelin or Toppling Charge or Blazing Spear to help your team. And the reason why I say that is because there's a passive here that's helping us. It's this one here, Spear Wall. Increase the amount of damage you can block from melee attacks by 15% while you have an Aedric Spear ability slotted. So on my front bar, I have Puncturing Sweep, and on my back bar, I have Empowering Sweep. Not only does this give us that 15% from the passive, it does a good amount of damage and is another damage over time effect. So if you're rocking Scoria, this is just another thing that's going to help proc Scoria. It also reduces damage dealt to you by 15% for 10 seconds, plus an additional 4% for each enemy hit. So if you're surrounded by enemies, you know you're in trouble. Your Bat Swarm's not ready yet because Bat Swarm costs 140 ultimate. Guess what? This only costs 72. So if you don't have time or resources to wait for your Bat Swarm, pop this ultimate. It's going to help you survive long enough for a teammate to come. Or you could get a guy low enough on health from the burst of this, you know, coupled with a Purifying Light, and maybe you had a Vampire Bane already running on that target. That's going to be a lot of outgoing damage at once. It may get them in execute range. You may be able to kill them before the group kills you, etc. There's a lot of scenarios where this ultimate's really good, and I use it quite often when I need it. It also has a chance to proc the Burning Light passive, which does additional burst damage. Found here. Where are we? We have a Burning Light passive somewhere. Ah, there we are. Burning Light. When you deal damage with an Aedric Spear ability, you have a chance to deal an additional physical or magic damage, whichever is higher, and it can occur once every half a second. So, the whole time this is running, from the first time you cast it throughout the 6-second duration, you have a chance to proc that Burning Light for additional burst. So, it's a very good skill, and it helps us defensively. So, that is the skills I use. That is the reason I use them.